Hulk Hogan was born on August 11, 1953, in Augusta, Georgia. He is a six-time WWE champion and a six-time WCW champion. He won the Royal Rumble twice, in 1991 and 1992. He also won the WWE Tag Team Championship once with Edge. Hogan began wrestling for CWF, Championship Wrestling from Florida, in August of 1977. He initially wore a mask and was called the Super Destroyer. Hogan soon left the promotion due to issues working with Hiro Matsuda. He opened a gym in Cocoa Beach, Florida named Whitey and Terry's Olympic Gym. It was there that he met Ed Leslie, aka Brutus the Barber Beefcake. They wrestled together in Alabama in 1978 as Terry and Ed Boulder, collectively known as the Boulder Brothers. They eventually began wrestling for Jerry Jarrett and the CWA, Continental Wrestling Association, in Memphis, Tennessee in 1979. While Hogan was wrestling in Memphis, he appeared on a local talk show in which he sat next to Lou Ferrigno, the star of The Incredible Hulk. At the time, Hogan stood 6 feet 7 inches and weighed 295 pounds, with 24-inch biceps. The host commented that Hogan dwarfed the Hulk, and Hogan began wrestling as Terry the Hulk Boulder, and sometimes Sterling Golden. Hogan won his first wrestling title in December of 1979, when he defeated Bob Roop for the NWA Southeastern Heavyweight Championship. In the fall of 1979, Terry Funk introduced Hogan to Vincent J. McMahon. In November of 1979, he wrestled for the first time in the WWF under the ring name Hulk Hogan on WWF's Championship Wrestling show, defeating Harry Valdez. In December of 1979, Hogan made his first Madison Square Garden appearance and defeated Ted DiBiase with a bear hug. In 1980, Hogan would wrestle Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship and eventually began a feud with Andre the Giant that resulted in a match between them in August of 1980 at Shea Stadium. Hogan wrestled on and off in New Japan Pro Wrestling between 1980 and 1985. He was the first holder of the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in 1983. Hogan wrestled in AWA, American Wrestling Association, between 1981 and 1983. He started as a heel, but that quickly changed when he came to the ring to help Brad Rheingans, who was being attacked by Jerry Blackwell. Hogan returned to the WWE in late 1983. He defeated the Iron Sheik in January of 1984 to become WWF champion, and held the belt for next 1,474 days, until Andre the Giant defeated him in February of 1988. After losing the belt, Hogan teamed with Macho Man Randy Savage to form the Mega Powers. The team eventually imploded due to Savage's jealousy, believing Hogan was involved with Miss Elizabeth romantically. Hogan regained the WWF Championship at WrestleMania 5 by defeating Randy Savage, who had held the belt for 371 days. Hogan would lose the belt the following year at WrestleMania 6 to the Ultimate Warrior in 1990. He would win the belt back from Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania 7 in 1991. Hogan would lose the belt to The Undertaker at Survivor Series later in the year, before winning the belt back 6 days later. He was then stripped of the belt by Jack Tunney. Hogan would not win the belt back until WrestleMania 9 in 1993 by defeating Yokozuna in an impromptu match, after Yokozuna had just defeated Bret Hart to win the championship. Hogan would eventually lose the title to Yokozuna 2 months later, and sat out the remainder of his contract. He would not return to the WWE until 2002. Hogan signed with WCW in 1994 and defeated Ric Flair at Bash at the Beach for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. He was defeated by The Big Show via disqualification at Halloween Havoc in October of 1995, after holding the belt for a record 469 days. In early 1996, Hogan reformed the Megapowers with Randy Savage. Hogan would eventually turn on Savage at Bash at the Beach later that year, joining the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, forming the NWO. He began calling himself Hollywood Hogan, and regained the WCW Heavyweight Championship at Hog Wild by defeating The Big Show. Hogan would eventually betray Kevin Nash at Spring Starrcade in 1998, resulting in the NWO splitting into two factions: NWO Hollywood and NWO Wolfpack, led by Kevin Nash. The two factions would feud for the rest of the year, until Hogan ultimately lost the WCW World Heavyweight Championship to the then undefeated United States Heavyweight Champion, Bill Goldberg. Hogan would announce his retirement later in the year. However, it proved to be a publicity stunt. Hogan would return to WCW Nitro in January of 1999 and challenge Kevin Nash for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, winning it for a fifth time. The two NWO factions would unite and begin a feud with Goldberg and the Four Horsemen. Hogan would eventually lose the belt to Ric Flair at Uncensored in a steel cage first blood match. Hogan was eventually injured in a Texas Tornado match for the title, which included him, Diamond Dallas Page, Flair, and Sting at Spring Starrcade. As a result, Hogan would take some time off and come back as a babyface for the first time in 3 years. He challenged Randy Savage for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, winning the belt for the sixth and final time. At Halloween Havoc in 1999, Hogan was supposed to face Sting for the championship. Instead, he showed up to the ring in street clothes and laid down for the pin. In 2000, Hogan's relationship with WCW completely disintegrated after the Bash at the Beach work involving Vince Russo and Jeff Jarrett. Hogan was supposed to face Jarrett for the title. Hogan wanted to win, but Russo wanted Jarrett to win and lose it to Booker T. It eventually turned into Jarrett lying down in the middle of the ring for Hogan to cover him. Hogan put a foot on Jarrett and was declared the winner. Hogan turned the work into a shoot. Russo then reversed the decision, stating that Jarrett was still the champion, with him later losing the belt to Booker T in an impromptu match. Hogan left the company, filed a defamation of character suit against WCW, which was eventually dismissed in 2002. Hogan returned to the WWE in 2002 at No Way Out as heel alongside Scott Hall and Kevin Nash as part of the NWO. They got into a confrontation with The Rock and cost Stone Cold Steve Austin a chance of becoming the undisputed WWF champion against Chris Jericho in the main event. Hogan would eventually fight The Rock at WrestleMania 18. After losing the match, Hogan and The Rock had a conciliatory moment in the ring, angering Hall and Nash. Hogan helped The Rock fight them off and turned face. Hogan would eventually defeat Triple H for the undisputed WWF Championship at Backlash, becoming the last ever WWF champion, before changing its name to WWE due to the World Wildlife Fund suit. Hogan would lose the belt to The Undertaker at Judgment Day 4 weeks later. That was his final heavyweight championship. Hogan would eventually win the tag team titles with Edge by defeating Billy and Chuck. After losing the belts to Christian and Lance Storm at Vengeance, Hogan was involved in a storyline with Brock Lesnar, in which Hogan lost by submission after becoming unconscious from a bear hug hold. Lesnar continued to attack Hogan after the match, resulting in Hogan taking a hiatus from the WWE and returning in 2003. When he returned, he had shaved his beard and was no longer calling himself Hollywood. Hogan would lose to The Rock at No Way Out and defeat Mr. McMahon at WrestleMania 19 in a street fight billed as 20 years in the making. Hogan would eventually leave the WWE later in 2003 over creative differences with his Mr. America gimmick. In 2003, Hogan was involved in a storyline with the co-founder of TNA and then NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Jeff Jarrett, in which they were supposed to battle for the title at TNA's first ever 3-hour pay-per-view. But Hogan's hip and knee problems kept the match from happening. Hogan was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2005 by Sylvester Stallone. He inducted Mean Gene Okerlund into the Hall of Fame in 2006. Later in the year, he defeated Randy Orton at SummerSlam after Orton had flirted with his daughter Brooke and attacked him in the parking lot. That would be Hogan's final match in the WWE. However, he was in negotiations to wrestle John Cena at WrestleMania 25, but the deal fell through. Between 2009 and 2013, Hogan was signed with TNA. He was portrayed as Dixie Carter's business partner between 2009 and 2010. His time in TNA was mired with injuries due to recurrent back issues, forcing him to be out of action for extended periods of time. He had spinal fusion surgery on December 21, 2010. He would eventually come back and wrestle Sting at Bound for Glory in 2011, ending his time as president of TNA. He would have to get back surgery again in July of 2012. Between 2012 and 2013, Hogan was involved in a feud with Aces and Eights, led by Bully Ray. Bully Ray married Hogan's daughter, Brooke, and a long feud began. In October of 2013, Hogan refused an offer to become Dixie Carter's business partner and quit the company. His contract with TNA soon expired after that. Hulk Hogan was inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame a second time in 2020 as a member of the NWO. Hogan is arguably the greatest wrestler of all time. He revolutionized the sport of professional wrestling. Without Hogan, wrestlers such as The Rock, John Cena, Triple H, and Roman Reigns could have never risen to the levels of success that they have achieved. Hulk Hogan is the founding father of what modern-day wrestlers are supposed to be.